Hey everybody, welcome back to Filmism. This is Drew,
Hi, that's Ryan.
and something we've never done before is I think Into the Spider-Verse was our first review of an animated movie, right?
Yes.
We're gonna do two in a row
Oh no.
because last week Amazon had a flash sale where you could buy the entirety of Batman the Animated Series plus Mask of the Phantasm and Sub-Zero for like $47.
I didn't take
So
advantage of it. I should have because I have Justice League and I have Superman animated series on DVD, but DVD looks like crap nowadays. So
well, Blu-ray does not. I would
exactly.
prefer 4K, but I don't even know if that's available. And honestly, this is usually 150 bucks. To get it for 47
Yeah,
was
Batman's the longest of them, and even on DVD, I think Superman cost me altogether $36, and even that was three sets, but they were on sale because I think Man of Steel was coming out at the time or something.
yeah.
I was like, I want to watch a good Superman show.
This is all 85 episodes of the original plus the 24
Does it have
episodes.
Batman and Robin Adventures or New Adventures of Batman and Robin? When their
Whatever.
art style changes to like a really simplistic look.
Yeah, those 24 episodes or whatever they did right
yeah,
after.
that was what it was. Was the Batman series did really well. It was always on Fox, as I remember, and then right around the time it started transitioning, the WB came into being as a network, and the WB because Warner owned DC wanted a flagship show, so they used Superman, and they used the same crew for the most part, and it was like you have the same art team, the same writing team. Why don't we cross them over? And that was when I think World's Finest was the episode that they crossed over. I think it was a Superman episode, not a Batman episode. But from then on,
watched.
yeah. But from then on, they both I think ran on the WB, and that's when you got the art change late in Batman.
Oh, okay. That I was unaware of.
Yeah, I think it was to make. I think it was to keep animation costs down because they were much more simplistic. I actually like the later Batman. He's a little bit more angular, and then he gets even more angular when you get into Justice League. But that's why there's the art change late in the series.
I did not know that.
Yeah, but it went a while.
But today we are here to talk about one specific Batman.
Possibly,
adventure.
we've talked about this before, and then we started talking about it recently at work. Possibly the best Batman movie.
We are talking, of course, about Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. Drew, take it away.
This is probably the best Batman origin story for people who have not seen it and have only seen Begins. Begins is really good, but if you want like a concise, like thoroughly like focused version of the origin story that doesn't meander, like there's the animated version of Year One, which is good, but Year One is actually much more of a Jim Gordon story. It's an entirely different can of worms. But no, as far as like theatrically released Batman origin stories, the animated one is the best.
Which is so weird. I was thinking about that while I was watching this. That if you did a shot-for-shot remake of this as a live-action movie, it would easily be the best. I mean, depending on who you got in the roles and who you got to direct it. If Christopher Nolan had made this shot-for-shot, I don't think anyone would doubt that it would be the best Batman movie ever made.
Yeah.
Also, just as a side note that we can get back to, but it's a Joker origin story.
Tangentially, too.
Yeah.
Which is how the Joker's origin should always be handled, as it doesn't matter what his origin is.
So let's back up a little bit. This movie follows the adventures of a younger Batman.
Yes.
I'm assuming younger. It also does a lot with Batman in his probably college and right after college years.
Mm-hmm.
It follows his relationship with, what is her name?
Andrea Beaumont.
Thank you. I will always forget that.
Yeah. Well, it's annoying because I think she probably showed up at some time in the comic. That's another thing. The animated series had a comic line too. It lasted a long time even after the show was gone. But I don't know if she ever showed up in mainstream DC Batman. But character wise, other than like if you're going by like every iteration of Batman, the most prominent female characters in his history are always Talia al Ghul and Selena Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
People forget how good Andrea Beaumont is because she shows up in just this movie in an animated thing. She's a created character, but like in just one really quick appearance, very impactful character.
Do we want to just say spoilers right out of the gate? I mean,
It's
from
it's
93.
a 20 6-year-old movie.
That being said, how many people have actually watched it?
Anybody who listens to us, possibly, but I bet a lot of people may remember seeing ads for it when they were kids, but may never have gone.
Now, I watched it when I was a kid. Came out on home video. I got it then. I didn't see it in the theaters.
I didn't either.
Which, more's the pity. Wish I had the ability to say, "Oh yeah, I saw this when it first
That's
came
something
out."
that like Fathom should do. Is just on the anniversary of it, like bring on the 30th, put it in like Regal.
I wish. I would definitely go in and see it. It's something that I did not appreciate as a kid. I knew there was something different about it. I could tell that there was a tonal difference. I noticed things like the addition of blood that was different from the cartoon that I'd been watching, but I didn't really have a good appreciation for it as what it is until later on as an adult.
Well, that's the thing, because that the show came out arguably in our formative years, and you all for some reason it always stuck with me that it was a better written show. Like at the time when I was a kid, I was watching this and X-Men like religiously.
Yeah.
And X-Men did like almost direct adaptations of comic storylines. Like I actually want to watch all that again, because I felt like that show was always in this like purgatory where I would watch it and then it would always get to the Phoenix arc and then it would end and then it would always start up at the Phoenix. I feel like I've never seen the end of the show. I've always seen the Phoenix arc and I got sick of it.
Or you'd have the what do you call the Sentinels and the post-apocalyptic version.
Yes, you'd have the episodes where like Bishop shows up, or you'd have the Phoenix Saga. That's all I ever remember that show. But that aside, like Batman had like original stories that fit in the 30-minute time frame. Like X-Men tried to adapt long form stuff. Judge that later, possibly. But Batman had concise episodes that stuck with you, and then when you rewatch it when you're older, they're even better more often.
There are a few that I've rewatched that are
middling,
a little
Batman in My Basement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the Masks, if we're making a Next Generation reference. One of those episodes that in an otherwise great show, maybe they could have left out. But this movie takes what you were talking about and turns it up another level.
Yes.
The writing is pretty, I don't know, sharp. Like when you've got Beaumont talking to Bruce and that little exchange that they have where Bruce says, "Oh, you're still taking order from your father?" And she snaps back with, "The way I see it, the only person taking orders from their parents is you." Which,
yeah,
for something that was ostensibly aimed at kids, I don't know how many kids. I certainly didn't appreciate that line until later on.
Well, the thing about it is, it could have been that you'd have to really look at certain episodes, but I always felt like the show never like we were talking. A lot of people forget the show initially aired at primetime. Like its premiere was a primetime premiere, and I think it stayed at primetime for a little while, and then it gradually. I think I remember it always after school at like 4 or 5. But again, this is when I was like 8, so it's hard to remember.
I was watching this on rabbit ears. It was
but I don't remember them ever. I don't remember them ever talking down to the audience just because it was an animated series. I think that was just the medium they chose because it was the most consistent way to get the stories they wanted to tell across. But the movie may have been the catalyst for, we could do this all the time and nobody will bat an eye. Let's just keep doing it with the show. But I always remember the show being sharp too.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that it wasn't. The show was excellent, but the movie, I thought, takes that to a whole other level.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best. It's like putting on a show for company.
Yeah,
it's the we're probably gonna get people taking coming to see this that don't realize how good what we're doing. Let's give them the best version of what we're doing, and that's exactly what the movie is.
And I think another part of it was the fact that you didn't have all of the censorship. Try that again. Censorship issues that you had with airing a cartoon on. And
again, this is the golden age of television, the pre-TV ratings era, where you could do a little bit more, and it was probably up to how you coerced the channel's board. Again, this is a Fox show, so I think Fox was super lenient, especially early on.
Mm-hmm. But the movie itself has straight up murder that they don't even try to hide, smoking, blood,
Yeah.
um, weird mafia references, which were hilarious from the Joker. That I, again, as a kid, would have never understood at the age of 9 or 10 what
Yeah.
La Casa Nostra was. But the Joker makes an excellent line about that. But watch it, you'll catch it. Uh, Story though, do you want to go over the basic plot before we get too far into this?
Remembering what I can, it's basically Batman's origin, and throughout whatever his investigations, he starts to find out that I think Beaumont's father is like a head Gotham crime boss.
Oh, okay, well, I watched this recently. When was the last time you watched this?
Probably 5, 6 years ago.
Oh, okay. I'll take care of the review then, or the plot recap. Essentially, you see Bruce Wayne a little bit younger. He's in a relationship with somebody who is involved heavily in Gotham business. This guy, unfortunately, is involved with some mafioso types, and that makes him need to flee to Europe with his daughter. The daughter, Bruce Wayne, had just become engaged to. Years later, she shows back up, allegedly back on business for her father. In reality, she is back, spoilers, to murder the gangsters that had, over in Europe, murdered her father, even after he had paid back all of his debts. And little note that I had never picked up on before, it's the Joker that murders her father. He's the when you first realize that there's a lot of trouble with the father and the gangsters. There's a creepy gangster outside smoking and making comments at the daughter, and you realize it's the Joker. Then there's a scene where she gets home, sees him as himself, as this nameless gangster walking out of the house, and she says, "You, but he paid his debts." And she walks into the house and screams, implying that the Joker, pre-Joker, was the one that murdered her father. Um, and you never find out what happened to the Joker to make him the Joker. You just find out through these little scenes that he was a mob enforcer, and then something happened later on, which gets back to what you were saying earlier about the best Joker origins are always just tangential.
Yes, but yeah, yeah, he's. I have a feeling there was some meddling to make sure he was in the movie, and they did it in the most creative way they could by making him a tangential character. Pivotal to the plot because he is a big part of the final showdown scene.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the main thing that you get out of it is that Bruce has channeled this grief into crime fighting, and she's channeled it into just revenge.
And they are a perfect foil of each other because both essentially do the same thing, but their motivations change who they are, even though in reality they're the same character.
Hmm.
There's a lot with Bruce Wayne, like really struggling with the idea that he became Batman.
Oh yeah,
there are
if you don't watch this, the one thing you're gonna want to look up is the grave scene.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was
Probably
going for.
probably the best like distillation of the best conflict Batman should have.
Mm-hmm. It's the middle of a thunderstorm. He is standing at the grave of his parents, begging for them to give him some sort of sign, saying, I know I made a promise, but I never planned on this. I never planned on being happy. And he's looking for something to let him release himself from the promise that he made to be Batman. And it's just a thunderstorm and a tombstone.
Yep.
And it is so well done that when I was saying that if you had somebody like Nolan having directed this as live action, everyone would talk about that scene in the same way that they talk about the gas station scene from No Country for Old Men, or any other pivotal scene that you think of regarding certain movies.
It's because even in the Nolan verse, like Rachel's a prominent character in the first two movies, but nothing ever like pulls him out of this promise ever.
Yeah, Andrea actually does it for a while get him to just be a normal human. If she had stuck around, if it hadn't been for the Joker and the other mafiosos doing what they did and forcing her to flee, there might not have been a Batman.
And it does a good thing for his character, and it shows, doesn't tell you why he's so hard.
Yeah,
because like the DC animated universe Batman is really hard. Like he's very like he's like he's the best version of like, all right, we get it, you're grim dark man. Like he's the best version of that. Like he's like the best dark Batman because you just get enough of that character constantly. But no, yeah, I would say like as far as like we said, Batman Origins is the best Batman origin story because it's different. It's an original take. It's not like an adapted take or anything, and it does a great job. And it's something that we probably, anybody who listens to this, all grew up with and may have overlooked. And those are always the fun things. I mean, we did just talk about Ninja Turtles and how that's just a trip.
That is something I wanted to get into. Is 1993? We're talking the era 1 year after Batman Returns.
Yep.
And I'd have to look up what else is coming out in 93, but this is the era of, Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And it's weird to see that as Batman had gone from Batman to Batman Returns, and the whole conversation we had about Ninja Turtles was that everything was kind of going goofy in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
This went hard to the other direction, which you almost wish that this would have had more of an influence on those mid 90s Batman movies.
Well, the thing that's great about the show and the movie is that it took the serious nature of 89 Batman and took all the nonsensy Tim Burton stuff that bled into it by Returns.
Okay.
Like like I don't know, Paul Dini and Bruce Timm are like gods for this show because of like what they were able to do with this universe. Before the Marvel universe existed, the DC animated universe was like the best, like acted out like motion version of any comic book storyline. And the thing is, a lot of it was adapted but not directly ever from the comics. Like it's its own thing. Like
Harley Quinn, I mean, we're getting a little off topic, but Harley Quinn was created for the animated series
and transitioned into the comics because she was so popular. Like that's one of the few characters that's worked for. There's also a hilarious episode, just another example of like this show going there. The episode where she finally just quits being the Joker's henchman because he throws her through a plate glass window. That episode.
I don't mean to laugh.
That episode, I think, also begins with her in a negligee asking if he wants to ride his Harley.
I forgot all about that.
There's a lot of stuff that they get away with in the show, and it's awesome.
I'm laughing not at the fact that happened, but at the fact that they got away with something like that.
Oh yeah,
on Fox.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure she says, "Don't you want to rub your Harley?" And it's just like, what? I was probably 13 or so when that episode aired, I would imagine.
God, it almost reminds me of the crap they got away with Animaniacs.
Oh, Animaniacs is one of those shows that I remember watching like years after it was it like had come out, and I'm like, why is this not on like Adult Swim or something?
It was groundbreaking
like
for what
crazy.
It did. But going back to what the hell were we talking about with Mask of the Phantasm? We were talking about it, right?
Yes, we were talking about it at one point. Just how it's probably the best, most concise, like 90-minute or so Batman origin story.
Oh yeah.
And what I was bringing up was just how it's not an adapted Batman origin story. It's an original one. So there is a little bit of like, oh right, okay, we get it. Like there is a lot of uniqueness in this one.
A lot of Batman origin stories skip right from parents murdered in front of Bruce Wayne. Then you get adult Bruce Wayne, and he is training to be Batman, or he's already Batman. This is neither. This skips over the murder scene, skips over old established Batman, and goes right into this is Batman as he's getting his beginnings, and this is Batman pre-Batman, but as a young adult.
Yes.
And nothing else before or after that I'm aware of has really delved into it so concisely and so well to this time period of his life.
Mm. It's that unique that unique period where like in Batman Begins, it's where he's like he burns his passport and like goes off to steal from himself.
Yeah.
But it's like no, we're gonna set the movie in that. Not the movie doesn't start after he gets rescued from prison after his like backpacking through Europe years. This is essentially his backpacking through Europe years, but he's just like, no, I know what I want to do already.
And this in anything else would be a little ham-fisted, but I love it in this one. I want to talk about the World's Fair because there's a scene early on where you get a very 1940s style. This is the home of tomorrow. We're going to live like the Jetsons kind of thing. And he takes Andrea on a date and they go to this World Fair. And she asks, "Do you think we'll ever see any of this in our lifetime?" And the whole theme is just very, okay, these two are very hopeful. He even sees something that's a prototype of what will eventually become his Batmobile.
Mm-hmm.
Then later on, you have the Joker living in the ruins of the Gotham World Fair, and the entire final fight is in a burning, decrepit version of the World Fair.
Yep.
So I say ham-fisted because this was supposed to be their future, and now it's inhabited by the Joker, and it's on fire. Is it a little over the top? Maybe. But do I love it anyway? Absolutely. I think it works for what it is, especially in a cartoon that straddles the line between being entertainment for adults and entertainment for children. On that note, though, we talked about how Turtles couldn't figure out what it wanted to be. It had some adult stuff, but occasionally was very goofy. I don't think there was ever anything in this movie that I felt strictly would only appeal to children.
No. Because even the show when the Joker's always menacing even when he's doing jokey stuff.
Yeah.
It's not they did this the animated Joker is the best Joker.
Because Mark Hamill.
Yes, and his design's great.
And the way that they use his character,
they do stuff that straddles that, like, okay, we're going a little too grim, but we're not going too childish. It always was in that right spot, that it was always creepy and menacing in a way, but still funny. And very, very hard to do in anything else. I mean, even the Heath Ledger Joker is far more menacing than he is just straight up funny. The animated Joker is straight up funny sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Which he should be, because he's the Joker. He's got a little bit more of the Jack Nicholson Joker in him.
Yes.
But Jack Nicholson never pulled off menacing the way that Mark Hamill does.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is the best of both worlds. There were episodes, we were talking earlier, there was an episode in the animated series where the Joker puts a guy in a coffin and throws him into a vat of acid, and your perspective is then in this coffin watching acid seeping through the lid of the coffin, only for a last minute him to get sucked out of a drain and ended up being saved. But that's the kind of stuff that was went hand in hand with the Joker just being funny. Speaking of Mark Hamill, I pulled up the cast for this, and I mean, Dana Delaney as Andrea. You had Stacy Keach, Ava Vigoda, of course, Kevin Conroy, and Mark Hamill. How did they get so many? I'm not saying A-listers. I'm not saying that they got the best actors of 1993. There was no Anthony Hopkins in this or anything like that. But for an animated Batman movie, the cast is fairly impressive.
Yes. The thing is, there's too much hindsight because like the casts of the Justice League like series plural are like hallowed. Like when Conroy comes back to do like DC still puts out animated features every like 6 or so months. Usually they're adaptations of comics and stuff. And for a long time they would cast other people. Like I don't know if they got John Hamm to be Batman in one of them. Like they get people from outside because they're like, we know what everybody likes, but we're going for different. Like we want to establish that these don't happen in that universe anymore. They're just the animation's just the way we want to tell these stories. And I think they got him back for The Killing Joke, and everybody was like, "How's the movie gonna be bad now?" And it ended up being bad because Bruce Timm, unfortunately, loves his relationship shipping, and he forced in the worst part of that movie.
I didn't see it because I had heard that, and at that point, I just didn't have any interest.
He's like the captain of that ship, and nobody else wants to be on that ship because it makes no sense. He's the captain of the Barbara and Bruce. Everybody's like, no, this never made sense. Why did you put this in the show? Stop.
So you had found some interesting tidbits about the movie that
just apparently they were going to be every other Batman the Animated Series film that came out after this, like Sub-Zero. I think the very last one might have been the Mystery of the Batwoman, and that one's not that great. But everyone after this was just a direct-to-video release. This was originally going to be a direct-to-video release, but Warner was like, no, we kind of want to do theatrical. And they were like, oh, so we have only about a year to do this now. So the production was a little bit rushed because last minute it was going to be theatrical, so they had to like widescreen everything, and that was a big hassle. So there was a lot of last minute, oh, we're going big time with this. And looking at the numbers, it cost $6 million to make, which now is laughable for an animated movie because of just how much that costs.
Well, it's all,
and this is all pre-digital.
An army of right.
This is all pre-digital, but it made just under $6 million as a theatrical release. That probably wasn't heralded that much because I remember it coming out, but I don't remember it being a huge deal. Again, this is pre-internet. I think now it would be just saturated. Like if there was a series now that was getting a film adaptation like this that was popular, it would be like oversaturated. So you'd probably get a lot more return, but pretty good.
While you were going over that, I apologize, and I hate going off on a tangent and not answering what you were just saying, but I just looked up the budget for Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh.
Would you care to guess? So you said this was what, $6 million?
$6 million.
What do you think that cost?
Well, Into the Spider-Verse is going to be gigantic because it has licensed actual music. That costs a ton of money. You paid for actual actors to voice act it, and it's CG, so it's going to cost a boatload of money.
Guess how much that cost?
200?
90 million.
Yeah, but that just shows you the inflation. But
yeah, 6 million to 90 million is how do you even compare the two? But what would you say is the better? Oh, are we gonna do that?
Yeah, I like Into the Spider-Verse. It's an entirely different type of film, but like, it's trying to tell a fun story in using Sony. Like, we want to still show that we own the Spider-Man property. Let's put a big movie out and actually try this time. Whereas, Batman was kind of like I said, it was going to be just a long episode, and Warner liked the series enough and was like, we want to make some actual money on it. Let's try to release it. And it almost made budget back, which is crazy. But I guess it shows that, even back then, there were people who could see that, there was quality involved in everybody working on this.
Speaking of soundtrack, the soundtrack for the animated series was always great. That theme song,
yes,
gives
one
me
of the most
chills
iconic intros. Yeah. That and Batman Begins have two of the best animated intros ever.
The intro to Mask of the Phantasm reminds me of the Basil Poldaris intro. The music to The Hunt for Red October. It is a very Soviet sounding, almost Red Army march, which I was a little confused as to what was going on. But after I kind of got into it, I really liked it.
Yeah.
But yeah, such a departure from what I was used to from the soundtrack for that.
Yeah.
And any final thoughts?
No, not really. It's just, I don't know why people like us that kind of like nerd culture type stuff. Seems like nerd culture is the only, now with The Simpsons has been around forever, but Family Guy and stuff, there's a lot more stuff that's being animated that people are like, oh, this is an avenue for comedy, and it's not always just comedy. You could do good stuff in animation. I mean, you go back to early 2000s, the Spawn series.
That was the
animated
90s.
series, yeah.
Yeah,
late
I was
90s,
just gonna bring that up, and that's fantastic.
But,
I've recently rewatched it.
But, like,
highly recommend it.
Yeah, but now what you get a lot of the times is you get the school of stuff that's adult targeted, not necessarily content wise, but like Batman in terms of the types of stories they're telling. But animation wise, it looks really crappy. And I'm talking about the stuff like Steven Universe and Gravity Falls, stuff like that. The newer like Disney and Nickelodeon type stuff, where it's drawn very simplistically, but that's not the types of stories they're telling. I think there's a new one coming out actually. I can't remember what it's called, but like something about like a ghost train or something. But there's a lot of that type of stuff now that's like targeted. I mean, probably regardless of what I think content wise of Star Wars, what I've watched, the Clone Wars is an actually good prequel story. Like that series is actually a good prequel story. It just sucks that it took an animated long form series to make stuff not crappy in the prequel universe.
I guess there's only one last thing that I forgot to bring up, and that's, do you remember the baloney?
Baloney.
Okay, so there's a scene at the very end during the final fight where
because they're in the like the Jetsons.
Apartment.
You ride in the car through the apartment.
Yeah. So they're Andrea is fighting the Joker, and she has him with his back over a table, beating the crap out of him, and you see his hand reaching back onto the table, and there's a butcher knife, and there's a big deli bologna, like a few feet long, and the next thing you see is the Joker's arm coming forward, and it's a bologna hitting her in the face instead of a butcher knife. Now, whether or not that is, I think it's a perfect little scene, because on the one hand, who knows if he even knew the butcher knife was back there? Maybe he was reaching for it and couldn't get it. But it comes off as hilarious because you could also believe that the Joker would have done that intentionally.
Yeah, would have that Joker would have chosen to do that.
You don't know. It could have been either. But that is the one scene of all the great impactful stuff, like the tombstone scene and all that. The one that sticks out in my head has always been the baloney, because it's absurdist and it's funny, and it's a perfect microcosm of the Joker in that one.
Yeah, the show is full of that stuff. Like, it was a big rock.
Yeah, the almost got him.
Yeah, it was a big rock. Stuff like that. If you have not watched this and on our urging do watch it, and you want something else in this universe, strongly recommend the Two-Face Origin 2-parter. Possibly the best 2 episodes of the series, other than Heart of Ice, which is the Emmy Award winning.
God, yeah.
Hey, we're gonna take Mr. Freeze, who is just a ice-based bank robber villain, and make him the most like impactful, tragic villain in all of the Batman universe.
How is Sub-Zero? I haven't watched it.
I haven't watched it in a while. I think what I remember is, now granted I haven't watched it forever, I feel like what I remember is it ends on an oil platform.
I don't know. I've never seen it.
I can't remember. It's been forever. But there's diminishing quality in terms of the impactfulness of the rest of the features.
Well, on top of that, once you've done his origin story, the truly tragic stuff with him, it's kind of like John Wick, that you can only use that once. And after that's been spent, what do you do with the character?
Yeah. But yeah, the series is definitely worth a watch. The movie, if you're not going to dip in for that long haul, the movie is just the microcosm of, oh wait, I remember watching this when I was a kid. I remember thinking it was good, and then it's the actual affirmation, not just you looking for it. It's an actual affirmation of, no, you were watching something of quality.
Yeah, I was never once embarrassed to be watching this. Like when I was watching the Turtles, there were some scenes where I was, all right, what am I doing? I'm an adult. Why am I watching this? At no point did I have that feeling creep in at all during this.
No, Master of the Phantasm. It's an oldie, definitely worth the watch or rewatch. Most of us probably have seen it at this point. I need to rewatch it again. I haven't watched it forever. Is it just available only on Blu-ray, or is it on anywhere?
I've only seen it on Blu-ray. It was like $15.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it,
how does it look in? How does the show look in Blu-ray?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's well worth upgrading. If you don't want to pony up the money for the entire series, which honestly I didn't have 150 bucks to do that, I had Mask of the Phantasm in my cart and was about to buy it.
And then you saw that you got
Yeah.
the package deal. Might as well go for that.
Yeah, my girlfriend had it in her cart, the series, apparently for about 2 or 3
It
years.
was like, why?
Since it, and she just never pulled the trigger on it, and she got an email alerting her that an item had gone on sale in her cart. Lo and behold, it was this for over half off, so we pulled the trigger on that. But yeah, it's worth watching. The whole series is worth watching. If you have the money, definitely do it. At some point, I'd like to come back and maybe talk about the series as a whole, but I need to rewatch the whole thing first. And that's
I've the only one I've recently rewatched was all of Justice League, and what was weird was that show rebranded for its last season, and that's about when I dipped out of the show. That actually ended up being the best thing, because what they did was they went from the core team to they renamed it, I think, Justice League Unlimited, and they just every episode was like, oh, we're gonna use like 3 or 4 super obscure DC characters and give you just enough characterization, but also the whole season was still a long form plot. Because I thought, oh, we're just gonna do one-off episodes, maybe it's gonna drag in quality. No, consistently good throughout. All of it owes itself to this show, though. The best version of the DC connected universe.
We'll get into that more, I think, when we do the episode on the series. Just going into what it influenced and everything connected to that.
In final
yes,
closing,
final.
If you want to watch a good DC movie, watch Mask of the Phantasm.
It is up there with the 89 and the Nolan stuff as, like we said at the beginning of this, without hyperbole, probably, would you say the best Batman story told on some sort of film?
Yes.
Or at least close to it. Definitely the best origin story. So cool. Give that a watch, and we'll be back soon.